Welcome to Grim Depot's debut tutorial video. Today I'm going over some Ridge Runners from the Genestealer Cults. This was for a client. They wanted something super simple. I decided with some white, orange, and then some pink skin on our little dudes. But now today we're just going to be focusing on the vehicle and how to build up those beautiful gradients. First thing we did, prime the model black. Then we hit it from the top, really hitting those angles with a nice solid gray. As you can see here, I'm just building up color from the black because we're going to build this tone. Then we're going to put a speed paint on top of it. So I'm focusing on the bottom of the panels and then working my way up. Next, we're using a lighter gray, sky gray here, doing the same thing. Really just hitting the edges of those panels, trying to push the envelope of the contrast there on the colors. You can see me spraying from bottom and going up quite frequently. This is going to help build those nice gradients. So I'm just working around the model, just hitting all those angles. I want to make sure I have a nice depth of color. If you screw this up, don't really worry about it because we're going to be hitting it with the speed paint anyways. Next, I wanted to do the little guy on the back separately. He's a lot easier to paint. If you do them separately, just pop them on a corkscrew or a cork right here with a little paper clip, hit them with the gray. Finally, we're using white ink, same exact thing, really just hitting those edges, pushing the contrast there, and you can see it's starting to build up nice. Tones from light to dark, really shooting the bottom of the model. Get your eyes at the bottom, work them up, just really hitting those edges. And this way, whenever we use that speed paint, it's really going to pop that much more. So I'm just working around the model, looking at places I can really accentuate the white just on the edges there. Just trying to make a lot of variation in color tones. Excuse the camera. This is actually my first video, and so I was not aware how you can focus the iPhone from here. And you'll notice this a couple times throughout the Genestealer Cult saga we got going on. Anyway, just working around the model, making sure I like my tones. Again, if you screw this up or if you don't like them too much, don't worry about it because it is in our next step. Whenever we apply the orange, it's going to be, kind of inconsequential to what we're doing. But, working on your gradients and your color tones and how to go from lights to dark and how to use your airbrush, that is all good fundamental practice. And, doing that as much as we can will make us better painters. All right, here we're using Armored Painter's Nuclear Sunrise, and I mix this with a decent bit of speed paint medium, and that's just to help keep the paint, fluid longer. And I'm just dousing the sucker in nice thin layers, back and forth. And you can really start to see the model, okay, this is where our undertone or our undershading kind of paid off. You can see that orange, that nice poppy orange, really grab onto the under filter we put on there, and it really starts to pop. So I took back, I want to let it dry a little bit. You don't want to oversaturate it and pull your paint, and just kind of doused it along the model. And like I said, these are just for the stripes. Then we went back in to this is optional, I would say, but I mixed the Nuclear Sunrise with Games Workshop Cygor Brown, and this is just to make the bottom of the model a bit more dark than the top, and this is just to help transition that orange color. It adds a bit more life to it, a little bit more variation there in the color. Again, these are just the stripes. You don't have to do this, kind of optional, and you'll get more or less the same result. It's just something that, whenever I'm working with colors, I like to have two tones to any color, like building from lights to darks and what have you. So there you go. I'm just hitting the front of the model, trying the side. I guess I decided pretty well. Okay, fundamental step here. Make your life really easy. Get yourself masking tape for miniatures. I think you can get it on Amazon or Hobby Lobby, wherever. I'm deciding on the size I want to do because I'm going to make this. I'm going to put all sorts of crazy stripes to this guy. Anyway, I'm just throwing it on there on the palette or the cutting board, measuring it out. And I have these cool little utensils. They're like these little rubber kind of impression bands or impression utensils. Anyway, I'm just throwing it on there, seeing where would be the coolest Genestealer most-esque Star Child stripe I could throw on there. And I guess I decided at that point. All right, so now I'm using these little rubber paintbrush deals, and these are great because they won't scratch your paint job you just did. Pressing down the model, get it nice and flush there. Really working into those edges because you want any of the next paint that we're going to be throwing on the model to bleed through here. You can see I'm just sawing it off there and then just pressing it down nice and tight. I go through the model quite a few times, kind of with those, you know, I had that big stripe in the middle and then a bunch of like smaller, I guess, tributary stripes, I guess you could call them, secondary stripes, kind of just branching off of that one. And so, like, you know, it's Genestealer Cults, kind of making them a little crazy, a little unorganized, because they're a little crazy, I guess, for worshipping Tyranids or something. I don't know. I don't play Genestealers. I play Blood Angels and Death Guard. They're a cool army, though. It's kind of basically like, you know, Horde Imperial Guard-ish stuff with Total Recall-esque vehicles. They're pretty cool. Anyway, just patting down the stripes there, or the masking tape, because that's going to be the fundamental premise to keep our stripes nice and crisp. I was going to make that, you know, vertical, then I was like, you know what? Let's go ahead and make it diagonal. Add some spice to the vehicle there. Pressing it down, nice. There you go. And once you got everything nice and secure, you know, give it a look over, and then we will move on to the next step. So here we're going to be rebasing the model in a nice black. I like Acryl black, coal black, excuse me. It gives you an awesome matte finish. Pardon the camera angle here. That you're just going to douse the sucker in black because we need to rebuild the shadows to work from, because because now we're going to build basically a white armor. You never actually make anything totally white. Anyway, go on to Vallejo Sky Grey. Same thing as the first step, building those gradients, man. All right, just blasting it from the top, you know, really accenting all the panels of the vehicle here. Make it work for you. So you can see I'm not even like hitting the tip. And whenever I'm done with this thing, you'll be like, oh wow, it's not even white. It's more like, well, it is kind of white, but there's a lot of variation in the colors. The camera doesn't really catch it great. I just kind of learned how to videotape better recently after I got done with this huge commission, this Genestealer Cult commission. Anyway, really just hit the edges of those panels, you know, just dust them, and then you'll build from there. Because, you know, whenever you're looking at a model and the more kind of like gradients it has, especially when it lines up with paneling and highs and lows of the model, it'll look way more kind of, you know, exaggerated. All right, back to the white ink here, doing the same thing, just blasting it, you know, getting those angles, making those whites and grays and darks work for us. So you can see it there. You can really see the model kind of take shape. Just getting the edges there, spraying at the bottom, and working our way up. Don't want to overspray. Practice good airbrush control, and I think we'll have a pretty good model. You know, one that you can brag about on the tabletop. All right, just working my way around, working it. Where else am I going? All right, so mask reveal, and as you can see under a different light, it's really harsh light under that airbrush booth we have. I am now peeling back the stripes, and you can see how crisp it looks. I promise you, whenever you put that masking tape on there, pat it down with those rubber tools, those things, rubber brush things, whatever they are, and it will keep your lines crisp. Look at how fresh that is. It's just in your face, stark contrast. Next, what we're going to be doing is going over all the basically tires and kind of metallics with Pro Acryl Coal Black again. Reason we're going to do this, we need to build a foundation to put our metallic dry brush on there. So I'm just kind of using hodgepodge brushes. You know, you don't have to, I wouldn't use a good brush on this because we're going to be really shoving it in those crevices and stuff. As you can see there, I use a lot of kind of cheap brushes I have on hand to do this. Just getting it all over the back there, watching where my hand placement is. I don't want to be smudging that black paint onto that white armor we just got down there because that would suck. Getting on the railings, the bumpers, all over, just working my way around the model, kind of just taking my time, looking at where I want to put my metallics, kind of just brushing over them. Whenever I do stuff like this, I was like, oh, that'll be nice, a little metallic, and then I kind of gloss over to another area and I leave another area unfinished. So just take your time here. You know, slow is fast and fast is slow, because then you'll have to redo your mistakes. So there I'm doing the railing. I grabbed a different size brush, one with more of a point, because I, you know, fine tuning it. We got to make sure we're accurate in these kind of tighter areas. Just going through the model, back and forth, back and forth. It does take a good bit of black paint, but as soon as I feel like doing this is a better step than dousing everything with metallics and then applying a wash to it. At least personally, I like to. It adds a bit more kind of depth to what you want to be metallic versus, you know, just painting it with a metallic and then like a wash. I think it has a cool, unique look. Granted, they both have their different places and whatnot. Going under the barrel there of that, I think it's a mortar. I don't know. If you play Genestealer Cult, let me know in the comments what those things are on the back of them, what they even shoot. So we're just going through, really getting through the tires. In hindsight, if I was to do this again, I would ask the client to not put the tires onto the model, because you could just blast those with an airbrush and really get into the mechanics of that little buggy. But as you can see, learn from my mistakes. Go ahead and do the best you can, and not put your tires on the model if you are able to do that. Anyway, generally you're painting like 4 of these at once or what have you. You know, I think this was like the last one of a batch of 6 I was painting. You know, by the end of it, it's like, okay, I got my method down, how to do this, and I left the tires on them the whole time. All right, next up, Army Painter Cobalt Metal. So here we're just generously just, you know, coating this sucker in this metallic paint. I actually really like this metallic paint. If you use it just straight, like on its own, it looks very similar to Lead Belcher, but it has a lot of coverage and I think it works pretty well. Army Painter actually does make some pretty good metallics in my opinion. So here I'm just going through all the blacks. We just, you know, just based, hitting them with this silver. And it's not really like an in-depth technique. It's kind of just, you know, it adds variation in the model. We're not really trying to, you know, win any awards with this thing. We just want it to look good. We want to look good on the tabletop, and we want to have some delineation between the pieces of the model. So I think this is a technique that really illustrates that, and it's easy to do. Anybody can kind of replicate that, you know. Dry brushing metallics on blacks and like silvers on blacks is great, and then also golds on browns. That's also fantastic too. You could even do different stuff. You could do like a verdigris. You do blues and coppers. There you go. And then all of a sudden you have a weathering effect there. So I'm just going around the model, dry brushing everything, getting all the nooks and crannies to my satisfaction. I really like that kind of steel plating in the back. It looks pretty good when you dry brush it, the black with the silver there. You can actually throw some pigment on there, like a rust pigment or like a dust pigment. It looks pretty neat. You can, you know, it's a fun little model to play with. So as you can see, just going into the shocks of the model itself, really want to get in there, shove that paint in there. Don't be afraid to get it on the white either too much. One of the benefits of working white with silver, if you do get your dry brush on the white, you won't really see it too much, especially when you matte varnish the model. So back to the little dude. Basically did another coat, just blasting him again with Olive Flesh from Procil. I like this color because it's like a good flat khaki, and it's good for speed paints when you go over it. All right, important here. Just armor paneling. Sorry about the camera. Armor paneling only. You're hitting it in white, so be careful here. You just want to hit like the shoulders, his knee pads, and then that like vest thing he wears in the white, because that is our white armor. So try not to hit the rest of the model on that. Okay. Next thing we got, back to the Nuclear Sunrise. This is a pretty potent color. I did mix it with Army Painter Speed Paint Medium just to keep it alive longer. It makes it easier to work with if you mix it with the Speed Paint Medium. It makes it also quite fluid and a lot easier to use in general. And Army Painter does make, I'm not chilling for Army Painter. They do make a pretty good product. Like a few of their products, I'm like, all right, this is good. I did rage at one point on Army Painter because their dropper bottle exploded and it got all over a Horus Heresy Death Guard commission I was working on, and I was like, oh my gosh, I just got blue paint all over this white armor. I'm gonna have to redo all this. And I got upset. Anyway, Army Painter, if you're watching this, I didn't mean to rage on you. You guys are chill. Y'all are nice. I like your products. They're good. Back to the model. Just going over all kind of like the cloth stuff with this Nuclear Sunrise here. Just kind of want to get it all in the nooks and crannies. I would use a smaller size brush, something that has like a good belly to it that can hold a lot of paint, but you can depend on it for accuracy. So as you can see, just going over his pants, his gloves, and that's really it. Oh, and his like sleeves if he has them. Go ahead and get those. And this will just kind of form the basis of our cloth here. Just making sure, and I'm going through this, you know, pretty thoroughly. I don't want to like just attack the whole model at once. Just going through it section to section, like sleeve by sleeve, you know, hand gauntlet by gauntlet, like pocket by pocket, whatever. Because if you do attack with speed paint, like the whole model, you're just like, bam, I'm gonna hit you with speed paint. You kind of, you're not really using it correctly. You need to make sure with speed paints that you're like actually spreading it around in like a concentrated area, and you don't want it to dry too quickly, otherwise it won't have an equal finish to the rest of the model. So for the skin, what I do, I water down Vulpus Pink with Games Workshop, like I water it way down, like really water it down. I just slam his head with it. I did this on all the Genestealer Cult models I worked on, except the Aberrants or whatever they're called, the big mutant guys. So after that dries, I go back with Army Painter Ruby Skin, and I just like pop his little noggin with it. This, in the next tutorial we have later on, just going over the like kind of chaff infantry, this is like clutch when it comes to their flesh. Anyway, back to him. By the way, apologies, I skipped a step. I didn't record on accident. Anyway, we are just dry brushing the blacks here with silver, but as you can see, his face and stuff, like his mask, his rebreather, or like the plates on his gauntlets, I did paint those the Cobalt silver. I just didn't record it. All right, so the actual armor he wears, like his knee pads, his shoulders, and his vest, this is really watered down and thinned with medium Templar Black by Games Workshop. I do like this color people are always like, oh, you know, black contrast paint, like why would you use it? It just makes everything black. Not true. It's actually very good for kind of like toning things way down. If you just got to learn how to like water it down and how to use it correctly, because if you do that, then it's actually a pretty fun color. You know, it's like okay, I could just recess shade this whole thing, and if I water it down enough, the surface tension in the fluid is just gonna like immediately run to the recesses. And it's nice because it's not an oil. Like oils and enamels have their places. Like I love them, I use them all the time in my armies, but I didn't want to use them here because I was doing like 30 million of these dudes, and I didn't want to have to deal with oils for that long. All right, so we're gonna do a little bit of poor man's OSL. That's how I call it. Excuse my noggin going into the frame there. I really wanted to make sure I was not overspilling this. I just got the white ink we used for the armor and all that, and I thinned it down with some medium and just kind of got a small brush and shoved it into the little windows there and on the headlights. So back with the airbrush, we're just concentrating our white ink into the places where we're gonna have light coming from. Just do this really slowly, and you want to do it with accuracy. We don't want to overspray because, you know, the whole model itself, it is white, right? You don't want to do that white OSL, that poor man's OSL, and hit the rest of the model itself. You want to just kind of focus on where the light will be coming out of. As you can see, I put my finger on the top because I didn't want like more overspray going on the rest of it. So I'm trying to hit it from a downward angle, you know, get the lips there of that little window. And I do use very small controlled bursts here. I don't want a lot of overspray. Try to be careful here because this is like, you know, one of those optional things. If you do screw it up, you kind of have to like redo the whole model, and that sucks. So just take your time, and if you do it correctly, if you do take your time, if you go through it slowly, it'll look pretty cool, you know, just for tabletop standards. Going back to the vent there, going back to the windows so the homeboys can peep out of it. Just taking my time, tons of layers here, tons and tons of layers, because that's what's really going to make the next color pop, is if we have a lot of layers there, something to build off of. Okay, next up, we have Liquitex Vivid Lime Green. I was kind of skeptical about this when I bought it initially, but this thing is, this is a very punchy green, like a in your face, it's lime green, dude. Like this is like Surge soda from the 90s green. It's a pretty good color. I like it. I use it on a lot of like kind of like OSL-ish things, you know, and it does a good job. I like it. And as you can see here, it just hangs onto that white, dude. Just like rips it. And yeah, as you can see, I pull the camera away and I'm like, whoa, that is glowing. So I like it. It does a pretty good job, you know, a lot of thin layers, let it dry, go back over it, rinse and repeat, all that good stuff. This will make a big difference. Okay, so I use Fluorescent Green by AK, and I thinned this down a little bit with some Army Painter Speed Paint Medium, and I just wanted to shove it in like the crevices, because when this dries, it dries like yellow green, and it doesn't take very long to do it. And as you can see there, boom, it is punchy, dude. All right, so here, just a little bit of armor chipping, nothing crazy. I didn't really want to go too overboard with them. I just hit it with some white, just any white paint you want, doesn't matter. Just a little bit of armor chipping around the edges. If you guys do like the base there and like want to know how I did that, it's super easy. Let me know in the comments. I can do a standalone video on that, of just how to do this base. Actually, I don't really even base like this very often. This is just a paste with a pigment mixed with rubbing alcohol, and I just kind of shoved it all in there. And it turned out pretty good. So I'm going back over the chipping just with black paint. You can do black or brown or another dark color, like maybe a dark gray if you really want. This is just to kind of add some variation to the edges there. It builds a little bit more kind of depth to the model. You know, after everything dried, I just went ahead and hit it with an ultra matte varnish. And I love ultra matte varnish. It knocks things way down. I use I think I use AK ultra matte varnish. Or actually prior to this, I hit it with a gloss varnish and then ultra matte, and just blasted it, dude, just over and over with that ultra matte. I love the finish on it because it just looks so powdery and crisp. Anyway, that is my take on Genestealer Cults. I ought to have a couple more videos covering Genestealer Cults. I think they have some cool models. Anyway, it's just part of the commission. Every commission I'm working on, try to make a small video or two on each one. So expect more in the pipeline. Thanks.